Hello, and welcome to the first week of Compassion Camp. This is the scripture encounter for teens and adults, and our scripture this week is Luke 15, verses 11 through 32. It's a rather long story, but it's one that you are probably familiar with, the prodigal son. The theme for Compassion Camp this week is At the Table. So as I read the story, you might have that theme in the back of your mind. What could this story possibly have to do with at the table? Where's there a table in the story? Before I begin reading, I want to invite you to get just a blank piece of paper, or if you like to journal, maybe your journal, and a pen or pencil, but you might also get some crayons or some colored pencils or markers because we're going to work on encountering the story internally, and colors sometimes jump out at us and help us remember images in the story and help us connect with our feelings in the story, with the emotions that we experience. So, if you need to, pause this video and collect those things, and then come back and we'll read the story together. So, I'm going to read this morning from the Common English Bible, and it is, as I said, Luke 15, verses 11 through 32. In Luke 15, there's a series of three parables, three stories that Jesus tells. The one about the lost sheep and the shepherd that goes to find the sheep, and the one about the woman who owns 10 silver coins and loses one of them and searches her house until she finds it. And then Jesus says, a certain man had 2 sons. The younger son said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the inheritance." Then the father divided his estate between them. Soon afterward, the younger son gathered everything together and took a trip to a land far away. There, he wasted his wealth through extravagant living. When he had used up his resources, a severe food shortage arose in that country, and he began to be in need. He hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. The son longed to eat his fill from what the pigs ate, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food, but I'm starving to death? I will get up and go to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son. Take me on just as one of your hired hands.' So he got up and he went to his father. Now, while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion. His father ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him. Then his son said, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I no longer deserve to be called your son." But the father said to his servants, "Quickly, bring out the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Fetch the fattened calf and slaughter it. We must celebrate with feasting, because this son of mine was dead and has come back to life. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now the older son, the brother, older than the younger prodigal son, was in the field. Coming in from the field, he approached the house and heard music and dancing. He called one of the servants and asked what was going on. The servant replied, "Your brother has arrived, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf because he received his son back safe and sound." Then the older son was furious and didn't want to enter in. But his father came out and begged him. He answered his father, "Look, I have served you all these years, and I never disobeyed your instruction. Yet you have never given me as much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours returned, after gobbling up your estate on prostitutes, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him." Then the father said, "Son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found." Take a moment and think back over the story that you've just heard. Perhaps it was familiar. Perhaps you haven't ever really heard it read from the Bible, but you've heard that expression, the prodigal son. I know that I named the younger son as prodigal, and that's what we usually think, but this week let's think about who's really the prodigal in this story. You might want to look that word up, prodigal. Now, taking the pen and pencil and the colors maybe that you have in front of you, I want you to take a few moments of silence to think about what you remember in the story. Where did you imagine this story was set? Was the setting a place you recognize from your own memories? Something you've experienced? Was it a place that you just made up in your imagination? What are the images you remember? The sights and the sounds and the smells and the tastes and maybe the textures of things and maybe the muscle memory of the actions in the story. You might take some time to think about each one of those senses as you go back to the story, or maybe you just let whatever's vivid come back to you and write down what is coming, those images those sense images that you are remembering. Notice the colors. Maybe you pick a color out and scribble with it a little bit or draw something. Notice the sound of voices. How did you hear each of those voices? Were there any smells for you in the story? Or tastes? What are the textures that you felt or that the characters were feeling and you were feeling through them as you experienced the story? Did you feel your muscles tighten or loosen at any time during the story as you were listening to what the characters were doing? Pause the video and take some time to work with that. After you have worked with the images, did you smell anything with the pigs, or what was the texture of their food? Things like that. After you've worked with those images, now connect with, and perhaps this is already happening, the emotions that you experienced while listening to the story. Emotions, as we listen to stories, are always connected to the vivid images that we've experienced. So if you connected with that son out in the field feeding the pigs, and you know what pig slop looks like or feels like or what color it is, what did you feel emotionally at that moment? What did you feel as the listener? What were you experiencing for the character, the younger son? If you've worked in the fields, worked hard and come in hot and sweaty, what were you experiencing through the older brother when he comes into the house and there's a party going on? Take some time to pause the video and imagine to go back and remember through your images what were the emotions you experienced in the story. And when you are finished with that, with just exploring and jotting down or drawing or however you want to record the emotions, think about who you are in the story. Which character did you resonate with the most? There's the character of the younger son, the father, the older brother, the servant who delivers the message to the brother, who runs to get the fatted calf for the father. Which character do you see yourself as? And maybe you could take one of the other characters and imagine what it's like to be them if you didn't immediately go to that character. Where's the mother in the story? Where's the sister in the story? You could imagine that as well. Once you've taken some time to think about the characters in the story, ask yourself, when have you come home? When has there been an important homecoming for you? When have you been invited to the table? A time when it was particularly memorable that you were invited to a table. Maybe you didn't expect to be invited. Maybe you'd always longed to be invited. Was there a time when you didn't accept that invitation? The invitation to come to the table? I invite you to spend some more time with this story this week as a teen or an adult, and you can enter in with some of the activities that the children will be doing in other videos and with the FaceTime sessions at 1 o'clock on Monday and Thursday with Mandy and Mark Haskinen. And spend some time just living in this story this week. And if then some meanings for the story come to you, can note those, record them. You might even have the experience of, oh, wow, I've heard this story many times, but this is what the story means for me right now in my life, in the situations of my life. So take some time to live in this story, and you can read it again in the Common English Bible. You can read it in the New Revised Standard Version, which we use most often in church and in worship. You might read it from the Message, which is a contemporary paraphrase of the scriptures by Eugene Peterson. You might even look it up in the Cotton Patch Gospels of Clarence Jordan. You say Jordan, but it's spelled like Jordan, Jordan, the river. These were written back in the 60s and 70s. He was a New Testament scholar working with Koinonia Farms, working with black and white sharecroppers in the midst of the civil rights, and he translated the Gospels into Southern vernacular and into the place where they were living, which was Georgia. So when the younger son runs off, he runs off all the way up to Chicago, that big sinful city, so different from where they were living on a farm in Georgia. Just play as you listen to the story. Allow it to make you sad, to make you laugh. And then out of that experience, perhaps a prayer emerges for you, for someone else, for our world. Thank you for sharing this time with me today, and I will see you on Sunday in worship on July the 19th, and we will consider this story again together.